There are people in the world who would like to imagine that they are somewhere different. There are people that like to pretend that they grew up on an island or in a fairy tale. There are also people who do. There are people who grew up on islands, the likes of which are seen in stories. These people sometimes like to pretend that they live somewhere different, somewhere normal. Bennett Kate was born on an island, brought up in fairy tales and lived a storybook. In another life she would have been mistaken for a princess, a little girl locked away from the world, her hair in long flowing tresses. In another life she would have been seen as beautiful. Not in this life. In this life, Bennett is just a girl who wishes that she was different. Bennett is a girl brought up by an order, on an island cut off from the world. Since she was 5, she, along with the other children there, were taught everything. She was taught from books from the world, but even before that, she was taught the most important part of the order, to look after the beast, to serve it, feed it, keep it safe. The beast is an ancient thing, a monster, one of those things that go bump in the night, but that doesn't make it any less real. We know this. We keep it safe, keep the world safe. The outer world used to call it a leviathan. We call it the beast. No use calling it anything but what it is. You have to realize it is a beast. It is a monster, a sea monster that could kill us if it wanted to. We will never hide this from you. We will not hide anything from you. We will tell you that we do feed the beast, and that sometimes it attacks humans. The rest of the world don't know. They think that these are just stories, fairy tales. We know different. You have all seen the beast, and you know that this is true. The rest of the world will never know different, because we keep it that way. There was a time when everyone knew. That time has long since passed, and we welcomed that passing. Knowledge is not always good. Remember that. I'll see you all tomorrow. Marion Stone let out the class with a smile, laughing softly to herself when she saw 2 of her students hanging behind. Priestess Stone, I was wondering if I could talk to you. James Shaw stuttered out slowly. In the background, Marion could see Bennett Kate smiling encouragingly at the boy. Of course, James. What would you like to talk about? What is it like for the rest of the world? Marion considers this question for a moment before scanning the room as if worried someone would overhear. If you like, James, there are a few books I have on the subject. She then walks over to her bookshelves, not waiting to see James' eager nod. If anyone really paid attention, they would have seen the 2 children running out of the classroom, one clutching a pile of books and the other desperately clutching his hand. One of those 2 things is forbidden, so Bennett and James should be glad that no one really pays attention to children. Once they are away from peering eyes and inquisitive ears, James spoke up. Benny, what are we going to do with these? We can't read them, it's against the rules. And if we did, we'd surely get caught. Bennett looked at the older boy and laughed. Come, James. Jamie, what are rules? Who are you to judge what isn't against the rules? Come on, James. Just read a bit. I'll make sure we don't get caught. James sighed and allowed himself to be dragged away. Bennett does exactly as she says. She makes sure they won't get caught, but not in the way that James was hoping. Instead of sticking to the rules, she breaks them again. She takes them outside. Now, to most simply going outside isn't that shocking, but to people like James, like Bennett and all, outside is forbidden. Well, most truth is as such. There is no rule one way or another, simply an unspoken belief that outside equals bad. So to James, going outside was a very unexpected move. James had only been outside once before in his life, when he was 5 years old. His first instinct was to marvel. As much as he knew he shouldn't be there, he still couldn't help but stop and take in his surroundings. The entrance to the underground in the middle of a forest was in the middle of a forest, a large rainforest. When James looked up, the sky was barely visible through the treetops. There were birds singing foreign melodies and moans of plants that James could not remember ever seeing. 5-year-old James never stopped to look around, but 15-year-old James sure did. He was broken from his awe by Bennett's giggle. Beautiful, huh? James was nodded, speechless. I like to come out here to just breathe sometimes. It's amazing. Come on, keep moving, Jamie. James simply gave Bennett his arm and mouth, not letting the words process in his mind. Though eventually they did, and he halted to a stop. Wait, you mean you come out here a lot? You come outside? Ben, that's not allowed. Bennett just smiles slightly. It's never said that we can't come out here, James. It's against the rules. You can't just run off whenever you like, Ben. It's not. Now Bennett is annoyed. It's not what, James? Sometimes I just come out here and sit and think, there is nothing wrong with that. Fine, Bennett. James huffs. That's when Bennett knows she's gone too far. That's when Benny knows she's gone too far. He only calls her Bennett when he's really mad or in public. It doesn't happen when it's just them. She tries to think of something to say to make it better, but he's already stomping off. Later on, James goes to find Benny to apologize. He looks everywhere. Her room, the courtyard, anywhere he can think of, believing with all of himself that she wouldn't have stayed out there. But when he does go to sleep, there she is. The only change in place is that now she's climbed up into a tree. He climbs up to her slowly, planning out what to say, how to make sure she knows that he understands, but he doesn't get the chance. When he gets to her, Bennett doesn't turn her head, she just sighs. Jamie, do you ever wonder what it's like out there? What the real world is like? Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we grew up out there? That's what I think of when I'm up here. I climb up real high and I play pretend. It's easier to pretend here. James looks up at her, the sun brightening her face, making her look older than she is. Her silver hair no longer seems silver, it instead seems a pale grey of old age. And if he actually looks at her, she seems to have eyes that have seen too much. She doesn't look 14. If he had looked, he would have known that she was whispering to herself, soundlessly, simply moving her lips, always saying, "It's easy to pretend here." They sit there until the sun goes down, and they seem to break out of the spell. Bennett speaks calmly, and she says, "I guess we should go back now." But James can feel the disappointment spoil the calm between them. When James was 5, he went outside for the first time. Anyone claimed that this was breaking rules, James would tell them that at that point everyone else was outside, nothing wrong with that. The reason that everyone was outside was that there was a missing child, a little girl. No one knew what happened, but the belief was that the little girl was part of a scouting group sent out to collect food, and she had wandered off. The story didn't really matter, all that mattered was fine. James was with the men. The priestess had called them back from the farming area to join the search, so when the groups were organized, they stuck the only boy with the men. He didn't stay with the group for long, though. Quite soon after, James heard something, and when he tried to get the attention of the leader, was ignored. So he strayed. It wasn't the best idea, but it was the right one. A few minutes after he strayed, he found her. This tiny little girl, shaking, afraid, and soaking wet, called out to her as best he could. Hey! Hey, you! I think I was sent here to find you. She looked up at him suddenly. Her blue eyes, large and round, searched his face. You found me. I was so lost and you found me. You all found me. It found me. I didn't want to be found. James was not expecting such a thing to come out of the girl, who at such volume, and found himself backing away slightly. I'm sorry. I was just told to find you. I can leave. Turned away to go when the girl yelled again. No! Stay. I want to go back. I don't want to stay here. Can you take me away? He carefully walked back to her, wary of her every movement. Yes, I think I can. I'm James. James Shaw. The girl smiled tentatively. Bennett Kate. James held out his hand and smiled a childish grin. Well, Miss Bennett, let's get you home. Bennett grasped his hand like it was her only lifeline and allowed herself to be led through the dense forest. Now, James would not have been one that most would call sure of himself. At the age of 5, having found the little girl everyone was searching for, not just that, but having found her without any assistance, he was much too proud to admit that he may have gotten a little lost finding his way back to the priestesses, though he was quickly found by a lovely young girl who introduced herself as Marianne. With Marianne's help, the two children were led to the entrance and soon surrounded by a large group of priestesses. Hours later, James found out what happened to Bennett, why he found her looking like she did. An island meeting was called to announce that no one under any circumstances was to listen to Bennett, that they would only hear the ramblings of a child who was lost in a forest, left alone for far too long. James was cornered by a priestess after the meeting, brought into a room and told that whatever Bennett had told him about what happened before she was found was wrong. He should think nothing of it. The official story was that Bennett was simply homesick, lost in the forest for such a long time that she had convinced herself that things weren't real. The unofficial story was that there was a little girl who claims to have gotten lost in the forest, fallen into the water, and saved by the beast. Over time, the unofficial story was pushed back to the back of everyone's mind. It was simply a little girl lying for attention, to the point where most forgot it ever happened. James believed what he was told. He never stopped to question it, never saw a flaw in the logic that they gave him, never tried to. James was a believer through and through. If he ever had any doubt, he would have remembered Bennett when he found her. A tiny girl, frightened, upset, soaking wet. A tiny girl, her silver grey hair matted together in wet clumps, her clothing stuck to her skin. She was shaking from the cold, from the wet. If he ever looked, he never would have believed. I remember. I don't think I do, and to be honest, I'll never tell a soul. I remember being alone, scared and falling. I remember being found. I remember no one believing I was 4. No one knows how terrifying, how horrible it is to be told that everything you know happened is wrong. They told me that if I kept saying these things, they'd send me away, leave me to fend for myself, so I stopped. I told them I was wrong and never spoke of it again. But I remember. I dream it. I can't forget it. When I was 4, I fell into the water, and the beast saved me.